Unique Vintage was just a hobby of mine. I was a pharmaceutical rep and enjoyed my job, but I actually feel like I was always an entrepreneur at heart and kind of wanted something of my own. So a friend of mine made me a free website in like 24 hours off of a template and taught me how to get my business license, and I started buying and selling authentic vintage clothing. I didn't get my first sale until 6 months after the website launched, but I was so excited when that first sale came in. So I was like, wow, someone trusts me and put their credit card information in. This is awesome. And about 3 years in, Glamour magazine mentioned Unique Vintage as one of their favorite vintage clothing websites, and sales shot through the roof that month. We actually did, instead of $1,000 worth of sales, we did $5,000, and it got my attention. Like, maybe I can actually make a business out of this. Fast forward a couple more years, I kind of had a decision to make. I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I knew that I couldn't run my business, work a full-time job, and be a mom. So I took a leap of faith and quit the corporate job and pursued Unique Vintage full-time. And once I put all that effort into it, it completely took off. Within a year, I had 3 or 4 people working out of my house, a full-time babysitter, and then we sought out our first rent-based location for Unique Vintage. And it really was just to house the internet business, and that has evolved into a 4,600 square foot store. We moved over to a 12,000 square foot warehouse where we run Unique Vintage now, and we've also opened up a second store in Huntington Beach. The Unique Vintage culture really kind of always existed. I didn't know what culture was. I just knew that I wanted to run my business the way I would want to be treated. So I'm sure all of us have had like the horrible boss in our past, and so when I started managing people, which was never my intention, I just made sure that I treated them exactly the opposite of my worst boss. And so I probably started out being a little too nice and too accommodating and not wanting to say no, but that's evolved into a very great culture. I personally believe culture needs to come from within. I don't think you can create it if you don't feel it and believe it and think it every day. For me, I always just treat people really well. I'm generous with my employees. When I found out that, half of my 20-year-olds didn't have insurance because they didn't make enough money to pay for it and they were too old to be on their parents' insurance policy, I just decided to start taking care of my employees' insurance. So we pay for 75% of it, they pay for 25% of it. And that's something I didn't have to do. I just wanted to do it. So that's kind of an example of how I've always treated my employees. When we do super well, I always feel like I need to reward my employees. And I don't want to be forced to do that. It's usually spontaneous. It's usually because we're chugging along, we're doing great, we all get along, and I felt like I want to reward them with something. So we might close down and go on a weekend trip or a surprise day to Magic Mountain or something like that. And then I would say in the last year, I've really tried to make this a culture that everyone understands now that I was able to give a word to the way we operated here. And so I've printed out our core values on posters and sent them out in emails, and also when we hire within, we list our core values in our job postings, because I just don't even want people to apply if they don't think that they would fit into our culture. So that's just really basic things that are very natural to me, which is be honest, be open. We're always looking to grow. So if you're one of those people that doesn't like change, this is probably not the right place for you. I make changes and decisions on a whim, and people need to be comfortable with that. I want everyone here to treat each other with respect, leave our egos at the door. I talk to my 22-year-olds here with as much weight as somebody with a master's degree here. I want to know ideas and their feelings and thoughts and how they think we can make Unique Vintage better. And so I just think that's something that comes from within and not something that you can actually manufacture. I've learned over the last year that I cannot personally be responsible for the growth of our culture and for the continuation of our culture, because I'm only one person and I'm really busy a lot of the time. So I've kind of enlisted my employees now that they're responsible for the growth and continuation of our culture. In fact, when we do annual reviews, that's part of the review is how have you contributed to the culture here? I want to hear that they've gone out with their, coworkers. I don't need to necessarily have been there or be invited. I have 2 small kids, so I can't really go out all the time, but I love to hear that they have done that. My dad, for example, goes to car shows, and, few of my employees will show up at his car shows on the weekend, and I just love to hear that and see pictures posted on Facebook. In addition, because I do tend to get my head down and work and then lift it up 12 months later and say what's going on around here, we're doing monthly meetings that we take turns with which department will head it. We'll have cocktails and a theme. And so the marketing department did like a fiesta theme, and we had margaritas and chips and salsa, and we have kind of a catch-up of what's happened over the month. Now that we're getting a little bit bigger with 35 employees, it's hard for me to let everyone know what's going on all the time. So it's a good way for me to catch everyone up on what's happening, and then also for that department that's hosting to kind of give an overview of what they do, why they do it, and also to take feedback and suggestions from everyone else, whether it's our shipping person, our warehouse, employee. It doesn't matter. I want everyone's voice to be heard. So that's one way that we continue our culture here. In addition, I'm always looking for fun events that we can all go to. I just flew everyone up to the Zappos headquarters a couple months ago so that they could feel what I felt when I visited Zappos. And then next month we're going to Disneyland for a Dapper Day, which kind of ties into the theme of unique vintage. So I try to find fun ways for us to bond outside of work as well. A couple tips for other retailers. First of all, be patient. It's taken me 12 years to get where I'm at. It didn't happen overnight, and I think it was helpful that I wasn't, counting every penny that came in. I was always looking ahead and thinking, what else can I be doing? Evenings at night, I was always on the internet searching, like, what are other people doing? Why does Google rank me high? Why don't they rank me high? Also, I would say take chances. You can't be too conservative, I don't think, because some of the best things that I've done for my business has been totally on a whim and taking a big chance. I've also made a lot of failures, and I think that's okay. Every failure that I've run into has directed me to the right path. Even to this relationship with Plum Tree has probably been a 2-year process of making a lot of mistakes until I finally found what was right for Unique Vintage. Being humble and asking a lot of questions. I don't try to pretend I know what I'm doing all the time when I don't. I ask a lot of questions and listen and try to go off of gut instinct on making my decisions. And then, being good to your people, and I think that you'll be rewarded with really hard work and dedication.